Hello, section 7-8, factoring polynomials completely. So we've been learning all types of tips and tricks to help factor polynomials, with our main purpose being to be able to solve them using that zero product property. Okay, and so far we've been dealing with polynomials that either have two terms, a binomial, for example, x squared minus 49. We've been factoring those. That would be a difference of squares. Or we've been factoring trinomials, three terms. Okay, so either two terms or three terms are trinomials. For example, x squared plus 5x plus 6. Okay, then factoring things like that. But what if there's more than three terms? What if there's four? And this is where factoring by grouping comes in. It's most useful, or we almost always use it, most useful with four or sometimes or more terms. Okay, so that's when we would use factor by grouping. Okay, so the steps are: one, you're going to possibly rearrange if needed to put together like terms, put together, let's say, similar terms. Step two, group the similar terms. 3, factor out their GCF. And then 4, factor out the GCF again. Okay, so you might think, oh, well, steps 3 and 4 are kind of the same thing. They kind of are, but you'll see once we put this in action, not really. Okay, so this first step, rearrange if needed, sometimes it's not needed. Okay, so first we look at, here we have 4 terms. 1, 2, 3, 4, and it says rearrange if needed to put together similar terms. So what they mean by similar terms is ones that they have in common. These first two both have x's. These have x's, these have x's. So really those are kind of similar terms. These two both don't have x's, but they both are divisible by 2. They both have a factor of 2. So I'm not going to rearrange this at all because we're already kind of similar. Step 2, we want to group the similar terms. What I mean by that is we're going to introduce parentheses. Since it's strictly addition, if it wasn't addition, we would rewrite it as addition. Since it's strictly addition, we can add in any order we want. So I'm going to add these first two first. I can't really add them because they're not like terms, but I can say I'm going to add them first by putting parentheses around them. Plus, and then I'm going to add these next two, 2x plus 6. This is our grouping stage. So we grouping. This is all just still strictly addition. This is still addition. Even though I have parentheses, it doesn't mean we're at the multiplication step yet. We're strictly addition. So there, that was step 2. Group the similar terms. Step 3, factor out their greatest common factor. What that means is I'm going to look at just this guy right here, and I'm going to see what do they have in common and factor it out. Well, they both have x's. And this has 3 x's, this has 2 of them because of this. So the most x's I can factor out are 2. So I'm going to factor out x squared. Okay. And then we're going to, again, undistribute. Figure out x squared times what gets me that x to the third? Well, times the x. Plus x squared times what is going to give me that 3x squared? Well, times 3. So there I factored an x squared out of this guy right here. So if I distribute this back in, I'll get back up here to where I started. Okay. Now I'm going to repeat and do that same thing with this next one. So what do these two have in common? Well, these are both divisible by 2. This doesn't have an x, so I can't factor an x out, but they're both divisible by 2. So we're going to factor a 2 out. 2 times x gets me this first term. 2 times x gets me 2x squared. And then 2 times 3, so plus 3. 2 times 3 gets me this term. It's always important to make sure as you're working that what you have here, what you have here is equivalent to what you have down here. Meaning if I distribute this in, I'll get back to here. If I distribute this in, I'll get back to here. And if I remove the parentheses, I'll get back to where I started. We want to make sure that every step is equivalent to the one before. Okay, so we just got with step 3, factor out their greatest common factor. So we factored out each greatest common factor. Now, this is the part that can sometimes confuse people, so I'm going to try to go slow. This actually has 2 terms. So if you notice here, we're adding here in the middle. So we've got this term here and this term here. Because this is x squared times x plus 3 and 2 times x plus 3. Now, if you notice, this term has 2 factors. I've got an x squared and an x plus 3. This one's got a 2, and this one has an x plus 3. If you notice, these 2 are the same. So we are going to take those 2 that are the same, this guy and this guy, and we are going to undistribute, factor them out. So I will have an x plus 3 out front, and x plus 3 times what? X plus 3 times what is going to get me this first red thing? Well, the x squared. The x squared is what's missing. So we have that x squared. And then here's our plus sign. Now x plus 3 times what gets me the second term, the second red thing? Well, times the 2. So plus 2. So now if you've noticed, we've turned this into a strictly multiply problem. Okay. So now I've got my 2 factors. So I've got my factor of x plus 3, and I've got my factor of x squared plus 2. So let's write that out without all the colors. X plus 3 times x squared plus 2. Always a good idea, check this guy. Make sure it works. Let's check it. Meaning, let's distribute this guy out. So if I take x times x to the third, I get x times x squared, I get x to the third, plus 2x, plus 3x squared, plus 6. Now, if you notice, we're in a different order, but they're all still there. X to the third, 2x, 3x squared, plus 6. Okay, they're in a different order, but they're all still there, so it worked. So there is my factored. Okay. All right, next, let's do another by grouping. Again, first step, rearrange if needed to put together similar terms. So if we look at this one, these first 2 terms, this is an x to the second, and this is a y. They have nothing in common at all. So I'm going to rearrange to put things in common. So I'm going to put the x squared. Well, this one just has a straight up x, so I'm going to put those 2 first. X squared plus x, and then plus the y plus xy. Okay. All right. So now that I've got them rearranged, okay, I can go ahead and factor. So, oh no, first group. I need to group them. So I'm going to group the first 2. So x squared plus x plus y plus xy. Now factor. Out of these first 2, they both have an x in common. So I can factor that x out. Be left with x plus, oh, I need a 1 here for a placeholder. If not, it won't distribute back in. So make sure it distributes back in. X squared plus x. Okay. Plus, now out of these 2, I can take out a y. Those both have a y. So I'll need y times 1 plus y times x. Okay, so that was done with step 3. Factor out the greatest common factor, which we did. Now we look here, we've got our 2 terms. And again, it's helpful to identify the 2 terms. We've got this one plus this one. And look to see, like this, they had one in common. They had this x plus 3 in common. These don't. This has an x plus 1. This has a 1 plus x. Well, addition can be done in any order. So I'm going to rewrite x plus 1, plus y. I'm going to flip-flop these into x plus 1. 1 plus x plus 1. If it's strictly addition, you can flip-flop the order. Now, again, 2 terms. We've got this one and this one. So we look to see these both have this x plus 1 in common. So they both have this x plus 1. So again, I'm going to write this x plus 1 out front as x plus 1. And now x plus 1 times what gets me this first term? Well, times that x. Plus x plus 1 times what gets me this? The y. So there is my factored form. Again, we want to check it. Why I've always been doing check it in orange, but we're going to check it. So let's distribute it out. X times x, x to the second. X times y is just x times y. 1 times x is just x. 1 times y is just y. So go back and look at the very original. Make sure all the terms are there. X squared, xy, xy, x, x, and y. Yep, all there. So I now have it factored. Factors into x plus 1 times x plus y. All done. All right, your turn. Okay, I want you to do monitoring progress problems 1 and 2 on page 404. It's in your textbook right after example 1. And then do page 407, 4 through 10. Please do these problems before going on to the next video. Thank you.